Have you ever tried to chase a rumor, only to discover that with every piece you grab, it slips through your fingers like smoke? Tonight, we dive into something that is meant not to exist. A story so strange, so elusive, that the very notion of it is being erased, again and again, as if it never happened at all. This is SCP-9084, a mystery the Foundation insists is real, but also claims never occurred. And by the end of this video, you might question whether remembering it is even possible. SCP-9084 is designated by the Foundation as a fact that does not exist. A paradox wrapped in a lie. According to the file, SCP-9084 is not real, and yet fragments of its truth appear here and there in print and in digital media, as if trying to tell a story that keeps being cut short. These fragments manifest in what the Foundation calls formation events, moments when isolated pieces of SCP-9084 appear in different media. But if anyone tries to piece these fragments into a cohesive whole, something strange happens. The file says, when enough correct inferences are drawn, or enough people attempt to make sense of the full narrative, SCP-9084 erases itself from all storage. This is called a culling event. Imagine writing down the most terrifying secret you've ever heard, only for the paper to vanish the moment you finish writing. That's what SCP-9084 does. Whether it's written on a computer, printed on paper, or even held in someone's memory, once the knowledge gets close to being whole, it disappears. Completely. The Foundation's containment procedures for SCP-9084 are unusual because it doesn't really need physical containment. According to its file, they don't try to trap it, but rather to control the idea of it. The very fact of SCP-9084's existence must be scrubbed from public record, according to the document. Its knowledge is considered self-containing. The moment someone knows enough, the information simply wipes itself out. So, the Foundation actively censors or removes references whenever fragments show up. Interestingly, attempts to measure or monitor SCP-9084's presence in the Noosphere, the shared space of ideas and thoughts, reveal something disturbing. Using Noospheric activity radars, NARS, Foundation researchers have detected increasing localized Noospheric activity as more correct inferences are drawn about SCP-9084's nature, but they have not found a way to physically contain or stop it. Despite being non-existent, the Foundation has collected several consistent fragments and hypotheticals, enough to piece together a partial image of what SCP-9084 might be. Here's what is known, or at least strongly inferred, based on Foundation reports. The event, or non-event, is tied to the Indian subcontinent, specifically northern India. It is believed to have occurred sometime between 1970 and 1990. At least one individual was directly affected, but apparently unaware that this event, or non-event, was going to happen to them. There is a third group, people who knew about SCP-9084 while it was happening, or were involved in causing it. Some of these people reportedly had ties to local, state, and federal authorities. No anomalous phenomena in the classic sense are recorded. The documents say the event involved no anomalous activity. However, there was a strong putrid smell reported over parts of northern India for extended periods. Importantly, this smell is tied to the idea of culling events, suggesting that the erasure process leaves behind some kind of residual mark, or at least memory, in the environment. According to the file, culling events are created intentionally. The purpose, seemingly, is to remove SCP-9084 from the global noosphere, to erase not just documents, but collective awareness. One of the most chilling aspects of SCP-9084 is how the Foundation frames it. Their file is explicitly contradictory. On one hand, SCP-9084 did not happen. On the other, a wealth of data, fragments, and inferences implying something real did happen, or at least was believed to. The Special Containment Procedures section states that the goal isn't to contain the event itself, but to contain knowledge of its existence. The sole copy of SCP-9084's entry is held at the O5 command level, reserved for relevant negotiations. In other words, tightly restricted. Remarkably, according to the document, there is no direct physical danger to those who attempt to reconstruct SCP-9084. The file states clearly, individuals attempting to piece together its fragments are at zero risk of serious side effects. Still, the Noospheric activity that spikes near partial assembly suggests something more subtle is at play. Perhaps a cognitive or existential risk, not one measured in injury or illness, but in perception. Foundation researchers tried to block or control formation and culling events, yet maximum strength measures uniformly failed. In short, they couldn't contain the idea. They couldn't stop the process that erases or hides it, so they changed strategy. Instead of containing SCP-9084 itself, they contain the memory of it. What makes SCP-9084 so frightening is not that it will kill you, but that it wants to be forgotten. Or maybe it already is forgotten. Memory as containment. For most anomalies, the Foundation uses cages, locks, or physical barriers. But for 9084, the barrier is people's minds. The erasure of its knowledge is the very method of containment. Unreliable reality. If a person remembers fragments, they might not fully trust those fragments, because if you try to write them down, they disappear. What does that do to your sense of reality? Ethical darkness, the involvement of governments, secret erasure, and suppression of public records hints at something deeply political. Are these erasures for safety or for power? Existential threat. The real threat may be existential rather than physical. What happens when you can't trust your memory or your world? What if an event that once seemed to exist can be scrubbed from your mind, as if it never existed, even though the fragments still whisper? SCP-9084 stands as one of the strangest entries in the Foundation's records, not because it's violent or monstrous, but because it's absent. The true horror lies in the void, knowledge that cannot be held, memories that cannot be trusted, and the unsettling possibility that something once real might be erased so thoroughly that even its memory fades. What does it mean for us when forgetting becomes the strongest form of protection? And who gets to decide which memories deserve to be lost? Perhaps the scariest thing is this: by simply listening to this story, you are now part of something bigger, a web of ideas, fragments, and half-truths. But if you try to write them down, they might disappear. So I leave you with one question. If you discovered something that doesn't want to be remembered, would you want to remember it at all?